Hey, what's up? This is Frank Mandolini of the Last Minute Wrestling Podcast. Thank you for checking this video and make sure to leave a thumbs up below. And in the description, you will find the link to follow me on all social media and on Spotify and Apple Podcast, which conveniently is the place where you should leave a 5-star review to help other people get into this wonderful podcast named Last Minute Wrestling Podcast. Thank you so much. Enjoy the video. For the first time ever, there's no way I am redoing this interview because I forgot to press record. Jeremy Prophet on Last Minute Wrestling Podcast. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be on here. I tell you, for me, it's always an honor being able to have a platform to talk about my career, talk about Canadian wrestling talent and all the other issues out there. And also, you came highly recommended by a good friend of mine and a great in-ring rival, Speedball Mike Bailey. So I know that, if you're cool with Speedball, you're definitely going to be cool with me. And I look forward to enlightening and entertaining all the people here on the Last Minute Wrestling Podcast.
Yeah, is that the first time that you get interviewed by someone in Italy?
Yes, it is. In
Oh,
fact, you would be only the second person in all of Europe to do an interview with me. Hey, I'm glad for any opportunity anywhere in the world, and definitely in a place like Italy that I visited as a tourist and would love to go back to as a wrestler.
mate, I'm honored. I'm honored. It's always great when I get to be like the first Italian to do something like that. So, for mainly for two reasons: one, in Italy, wrestling is not that big, and two, literally, as you have witnessed if you came around, no one speaks in English in Italy. So yeah, that's why I get to do this cool interviews with cool people like you. But since you mentioned Speedball Mike Bailey, tell me a little bit about your relationship with him.
Yeah, well, Speedball has been a very good friend, one of my best friends for, I'd say, close to 15 years, almost my entire wrestling career. Going to be 16 years in a couple of months. And he's been wrestling for the same amount of time. And we more or less started our careers in the same place. I did 2 years of training with
Yeah.
Jacques Rougeau. And then after, I decided to go and try my hand at making a name for myself on the Quebec independent wrestling scene. Went to a company called MWF, Montreal Wrestling Federation, which was based out of a town called Valleyfield here in Quebec. And that's where I first met Speedball when he was also just getting started. We may have even both made our actual official in-ring debuts on the same show. And that was really cool. But what not a lot of people know, because they know of our rivalry and our friendship, but the thing is that I think the first time we were actually put in a one-on-one match would have been sometime in either 2007 or 2008. So even though we both started in like 2005,
Yeah.
it still took about 2 to 3 years
Mm-hmm.
before the promoters had the clairvoyance to say, hey, we pair up these two guys. What a match that's going to be. And I love the circumstances around it because we had kind of been in multi-man tags. We had been in six ways, the kind of matches where you don't even get to touch each other. And we would be on separate parts of the card. I'd have a match, he'd have a match. Usually we'd be putting on the best matches on the show individually. And then they decided to do a taping for, it was actually for a priest who had a TV deal in his community to air wrestling. So
Yeah.
these were done in front of little to no people. These were done in front of maybe, I'd say I've never really seen more than maybe 20 or 30 people, but usually it was a lot closer to 10. And this was done before the actual show. And he was the first person to say, well, I love both of your styles. I'd love to see a match between you two. We were all for it. We did the match. And again, this is before the actual show took place. So we had a
Mm-hmm.
show that was going to take place in front of maybe 200, 250 people. Right now, there's about 10 people and staff
Yeah.
and workers kind of around. We went in, we had a match. The entire locker room more or less emptied slowly to watch what was going on and to see us in there. And all the talk was about, hey, why aren't we doing this on our show? This is such a great match, and it's only being done here in front of 10 people. We're seeing, dives, 450 splashes, shooting stars, all these kinds of things, and it's in front of almost nobody. And you'd think that would have got the ball rolling on us maybe doing something, especially
Yeah.
at the time that I think I was on the verge of starting a heel turn, and
Mm-hmm.
he was, the top baby face in the company. And so there was definitely a window to do something. but it actually never materialized in that company. And then our matches again became few and far between. We wrestled in Cornwall, Ontario, which is a town about 40 minutes outside of Montreal. Had a fantastic match there. I actually have the match. Mike Bailey has a copy of the match too. It hasn't really seen the light of day, but maybe I'll upload it so people can see it, because that was our first real encounter one-on-one in front of fans. It was at a festival, a summer festival, and it was an outstanding match for where our skills were at that time, which this was maybe around 2010. So it was actually, I'd say maybe 3 years after our first match. It was only when the IWS came back in 2014 that we actually got put into more or less of a program. And even at that point, it took till 2016 when I was wrestling as Black Dynamite and was undefeated and being built up as a top star in the company. And Mike Bailey was champion. They decided to throw us in there, and I really feel they did it more or less because I nagged the promoter, PCP Manny, to say, put me in there with Mike Bailey and watch. It will be magic with where we are right now, with the reactions I'm getting, the reactions he's getting, and he was the top heel in the company at that point. So it just made sense that you have, him as the top heel, me as this up-and-coming, undefeated, irresistible force, and the two of us meeting. And when we did, it was magic. It was the match of the year here in Quebec. I'd say it was the match of the year in Canada. I would put that up against any match, past, present, or future, that people would consider match of the year here in Canada. And, it's unfortunate that the footage of that match has, not to say it's totally gone missing, but it seems that aside from the people who purchased DVDs of the event, it's pretty hard to find. So if you people out there actually have a copy of that DVD, IWS 2016, it was called First Blood, the name of the show. First Blood 2016. If you can find a copy of that, you know what? Hell, I'll put a bounty on it. If you have a copy of that, get in touch with Jeremy Prophet. I'll give you a handsome reward. I'll give you an 8x10. I'll give you a T-shirt. I'll even give you $50 Canadian if you have that. So I'll put a bounty on that. But more importantly, the footage of that match, like I said, match of the year, and I would put it up against any match of the year. Hell, I'd put it up against any match of the year anywhere in the world. That's how good that match was. And then it led to a string of other matches between us. We had one that you can see on the internet where it was a four-way, where Rey Mysterio and Jack Evans were also involved in the match. And I managed to come out on top and win my first of 2 IWS World Championships. And then we had a rematch as well. Again, no holds barred, street fight, IWS style, hardcore as it should be. And then we also had a tag match where he teamed with another good wrestler by the name of Benjamin Tull, and I teamed with PCO, Pierre Carl Ouellet, on the other side. And so there's definitely a lot of star power in that match. And anytime I get in the ring with Speedball, it's always fun. It's enlightening. We push each other to the limits. I'm the kind of guy, you put me in the ring with somebody, I pretty much tell them, hey, look, bring the best you got. I'm bringing the best I got. Let's put it all together and give the people a great match. But I don't melt under pressure either. And I think that's what makes our matches special, is that I know I'm in there with somebody. No matter how hard I'm hitting them, they're going to keep hitting me harder, and I'm going to keep hitting them harder back. And we're going to keep trying to outdo each other. In the end, no matter who wins, the important thing is that the fans win, and the fans get an outstanding match. They can go home, they can remember. And that's what good business is all about. It's making the people want to come back for more, tell their friends, and then more people come to the next show, and so on and so on. If it were up to me, I like to use the analogy that my mother used. The first time that we stepped in the ring, my mother was there, actually. Not the first time, but I'd say the third time. And we just kind of did a quick little 2 to 3 minute match just to give people kind of a tease to something bigger. And we were interrupted. We had some heels run in and attack us and ruin the match. But the idea was give them just the most amazing 2 to 3 minutes and then take it away from them so that they'll pay to see it again the next time. We did that. My mother happened to be in attendance, and she had never really... She'd seen me wrestle a handful of times, but she didn't come to a lot of my shows. When she saw me wrestle with Speedball Mike Bailey, she had said, really, you should just forget about wrestling anyone else, both of you, and just wrestle each other.
Just wrestle Mike Bailey.
Yeah, just the two of you should just wrestle each other every show. And I really feel like a lot of companies miss the ball by not capitalizing on that, because I think that we're just perfect rivals for each other. I can match him in the air as best as possible. Cardio-wise, we match up really well. He's very hard-hitting. He matches me really well in the hard-hitting as well. So, you know, we're just proper rivals, and I think it's great because we're also really good friends outside the ring, and we both have the same mentality of wanting to give the people the best show possible, the best match possible.
Oh, well,
I talk a
man,
lot, don't I?
so it's not a problem that you talk a lot. That's the dream for every interviewer to have a guest that can give so much and tell so many stories. But I want to remind the listeners that you've heard it here first. If you have a DVD of IWS First Blood, there's a bounty on it. So just let us know, contact me or Jeremy, and you will be rewarded.
Yeah.
So, talking about the Canadian wrestling scene, you are such a proponent of that scene, and you take so much pride in what you do, rightfully so, I might add. Recently, I had the chance to talk with a young German wrestler from WXW, Norman Harris, and he told me great things about many promotions and many names that people never heard of. And he said that's a shame because there is so much talent that people has no idea. Tell me a little bit about it, a little bit, someone or some promotions or whatever that we should discover, and why you think we in Europe or in the United States don't hear that much about Canadian wrestling.
Well, you can look at a lot of promotions in Canada and it'll speak for itself. You know, you look at the IWS here out of Montreal. You look at Great North Wrestling. We put on shows predominantly in Ontario. You know, it's run by Hannibal of the Hannibal TV. Great promotion. You look at a promotion like C4 out of Ottawa, which have propelled so many careers to the next level.
Oh yeah.
You know, other promotions like Smash, like Alpha One in Ontario. Promotions out east like Kaizen Pro Wrestling. You know, there are a lot of other promotions out west that are developing great talents. You know, RPW, MPW, ECCW, which I think are still around. You know, from coast to coast, there are great talents all throughout Canada. I wish I could name all the promotions and all the great wrestlers, but, you know, just look up those companies and you'll see. I personally think that Americans are losing out by not getting to wrestle Canadian talent because we have to be twice as good here, because in Canada, you don't just get a bit of buzz about you and then get signed to a major company. There's so many hurdles you have to go through. You have to be twice as good. What I always say, and you know, for your European audience, they may not get the reference, but there was a time in Major League Baseball where black players had to play in what was called the Negro Leagues. That was what they were called. So no matter how good they weren't allowed to play alongside white players. So when Jackie Robinson came along, he was not actually the first. People think he was the first African-American black player to make it into baseball. He was actually the third. Everyone else who came before him, they were an exception. And some just, you know, kind of flew under the radar, and you know, they were kind of like a Jeremy Prophet. You know, they were mixed race. They were, you know, black and white. Others, you know, they were maybe more open about it, but didn't have the longevity, and people didn't say, okay, well, you know, we're just seeing a person with talent. We're not seeing color. We're seeing someone who can play this game just as skillfully as someone whose skin color may be different. Then Jackie Robinson was the first one where an owner of a team took a stand and said, I believe he's good, and if you guys don't want him here and are going to be prejudiced, then I'll trade all of you because his talent is on par, if not better, than other players in this league, and he's going to make us all money by helping us win championships. I think Canada is still in search of their Jackie Robinson, of the person whose talent is going to be undeniable and is going to change the mindset in major companies to finally say, okay, we've been missing out on Canadian talent for so long. There are a lot of guys out there who are 10 times as good as guys we decide to pay six figures to. So we should be looking at that. I would love to be that guy, but I'm not arrogant enough to say it's going to be me. There are a lot of great talent. I say I'm the runt of the litter, that there are hundreds of guys like me, and it just takes someone to get there and enlighten the people that they need better scouting, that we can't go and wrestle on all the big name indies in the United States. I wish I could. I think I would show up tons of guys on there and people would forget whoever their favorite wrestler was, and I'd be their favorite wrestler if they saw what I bring to the table. But we can't go there unless a company asks for a work visa, and then we fill the paperwork, get proof that we're an exceptional talent, which that in itself is hard to come by. You'll need a letter from a wrestling historian, magazine
Yeah.
articles, those kinds of things. And then you have to put up, close to 10 grand in money. Now, the money doesn't bother me because it's an investment. It's what I always say is that anyone who believes in themselves should be willing to put up 10 grand. And, you want to, maybe not you heard it here first, but I say it all the time. I would gladly put up 10 grand of my own money to get a work visa in the United States. So if some big promotion wants to take me up on that offer, I will literally put my money on the table to be able to make that happen because I want to fight the best in the world.
Yeah,
I see all
if you
these
can
guys on
overcome the
TV.
problem just by
Exactly.
paying a fee or something like that, that would
Unfortunately,
be easy. Yeah.
you can't just, yeah, like you're saying, you can't just throw money at it. You need that company who's going to hire you. But it's tough for the company to do that when you can't even legally go try out for them. Like you can't cross the border, go there, have them take a look at you in their ring against some of their guys, and then actually appraise your talent. It's literally illegal to go wrestle, work, take a job away from an American citizen, even if it's
Yeah.
just for one night, for the sake of a tryout. So that's where the system isn't in our favor. I'll use WWE as an example because I talked about this with TJ Wilson,
Yeah.
aka Tyson Kidd.
Yeah.
WWE tries out talent at their Raws and SmackDowns back when they were touring before COVID.
Hmm.
And so they would come to Canada maybe twice a year for TVs, once on the West Coast, once on the East Coast, and
Yeah.
only try out a handful of guys. When I was wrestling around, the New England states, those guys there, they'd be telling me they get like 6 tryouts a year.
Yeah.
I've had 4 TV tryouts in 15 years of doing this. They get 6 in a year. So when it comes to Canadian talent, there's so many hurdles in the way. They're not coming here. They only try out a select few, which a lot of that is just based on who you know. It's not even really based on talent because they'll do tryouts and they'll just, take people from a local wrestling school. They'll, take people whose, trainer maybe puts in a word for them, whatever it may be. And, they're not actually actively scouting promotions like the ones I named and saying,
Yeah.
we want the best of your guys to try out. So the odds aren't in our favor. In Europe, and no offense to your friend there, but they actually have an NXT UK that facilitates the signing process. So they're actually better off than we are in Canada, which it's funny because geographically, where I am in Montreal is closer to WWE's headquarters, is closer to the Performance Center in Florida. It's closer to AEW's headquarters. Is definitely closer to Ring of Honor's headquarters in Baltimore, Maryland.
Yeah.
But by that same token, we're also geographically closer than people in California, than people in Washington State, than people, probably in Illinois. So it's mind blowing that we're that close. And I think it's like they think we're that close. And they just think because so many Canadian wrestlers aren't showing up in the PWGs and the CZWs and the Evolves and all those places, that it's because we're not good enough or we're not in demand enough. But it's that, no, we don't want to run the risk of getting a 5-year US ban like
Yeah.
Speedball did.
Yeah.
We don't want to run those risks. So I feel the way to change it is that they need to scout companies. They need to make it a mandate that we are going to scout Canada. We're going to hire people without the ability to try them out because we can't do that. We're going to see what they have to offer. Where that becomes difficult and tricky is that it's one thing to watch a video on YouTube. You can tell a lot of things about someone. You can tell how good of a wrestler they are. You can tell what their in-ring IQ is like. You can tell what their promo and their speaking ability is like. You can see what their body looks like. But you can't tell if they're a good human being.
Yeah.
You can't tell if they're someone who is maybe a good presence in your locker room and is going to be an asset to your company. You can't tell if it's someone who loves the business or someone who maybe has no respect for the wrestling business whatsoever. Just like we saw with the speaking out movement, you can't tell if someone's a rapist or a
Absolutely.
sexual deviant. You need to know these things. And really, the only way you can really appraise those things is by having word of mouth, people who've been around that person, people who can speak for them and to their character and how they are as a human being. And by us not being able to go and perform in the United States on a regular basis and be around these people and around these powers that be, scouts, whatever it may be, they will never know those things about people. They'll only be able to see what's in the video. And yeah, the internet has no borders, but there are so many more intangibles because it doesn't matter what you can do if nobody knows who you are.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But let's imagine for a second that not on we're not talking about the United States, so no Raw, no SmackDown, no NXT or AEW for what matters. But let's imagine that you get a call to NXT UK.
Mhm.
Would you be interested in doing that? And I suppose that it will be easier to move from Canada to Europe than from Canada to the US, based on what you just described to me.
Yeah, of course, Francesco. I mean, when it comes down to it, it could be NXT UK, it could be Impact Wrestling, it could be Ring of Honor, it could be AEW, it could be WWE proper. Any company that's able to put that work visa in my hands or say, you know what, we're going to take you up on your offer. You want to put up the money, we'll do the work, we'll do the demand, we'll ask the government to get you. I'll go with them. No questions asked. It's not even about the money, really. It's and I find it funny that people are so focused on money and whatnot. When it comes down to it, we'd all do this for free. So me, it's not a case of the money. It's a case of
Hmm.
being able to have that. I just want to be able to validate my skills by fighting all these, so-called best in the world talents. I
Yeah.
want to get in there with them. Nothing gets at me more than seeing a great wrestler and saying, I want to get in there with this person, but I can't. I do believe that my skills are amongst the best in the world. I
Yeah.
just haven't been given a big enough stage and bright enough spotlights to be able to showcase them. I'm not your run of the mill average independent wrestler.
Yeah.
It's when you think of Jeremy Prophet, it's like, yeah, I haven't achieved these things, but unfortunately, I'm a victim of where I was born, of not being able to go to these places. I'd put in the hours on the road. I already have. I'd put in all the time, the sacrifice. Every day is a sacrifice. I'm
Yeah.
training every day. I'm dieting. I'm doing all the right things and have been for 15 years. I always say it. If you've taken a day off from going to the gym or dieting, hey, you haven't worked as hard as me because I don't take these days off. No chemical shortcuts, no steroids, nothing like
Yeah.
that. All natural. And that's just the aesthetic, because I
Yeah.
believe in looking like a professional wrestler, and that's a lifestyle. That doesn't mean that, hey, now we're facing almost 2 years of being out of the ring when
Hmm.
I've done this for 15 years with no injuries, no time off. If I could wrestle every day, I'd do it. It comes down to refining and fine tuning everything about me every day, using every day as an opportunity to get better, because I have to be twice as good. I have to be 10 times as good as the next guy. And I see
Yeah.
people that are getting hired. They get hired, and a lot of them, quite frankly, they're only good at one thing. A lot of them are maybe good acrobats, maybe good talkers, maybe they got a great body, maybe they got great in-ring skills. But I do feel that when it comes to me, I'm well rounded in every aspect. Whether you want to see great world class athletics, whether you want to see hard hitting, brutal, realistic violence, whether you want to see someone who can talk you into the building and make you believe every word he's saying
Yeah.
and then deliver once the match starts, and someone that looks the part, looks like a wrestler, that's me. And I
Yeah.
say, put me up against anyone out there, and I do feel that my skill set stands out and surpasses just about, I'd say, 99% of the people out there. And I don't want to be braggadocious, but when it comes down to it, I work very hard to be good at these things. It's not like it's a blessing from God. Obviously, life itself is a blessing from God, but I work to be good at these things, and the work doesn't stop. Just unfortunately, we have to work harder because of where we're situated.
Yeah, yeah. And I've seen a few of your matches online, and I can testify that whatever you're saying right now is totally true. And also, as everyone listening can understand from this conversation, you have a way with words. And is it the promo part of wrestling? Is it something that always came naturally to you, or like you had to work on yourself even before that? I don't know. Maybe you were a shy kid or something like that.
I wouldn't say that it's something that didn't come naturally, but it's something I work on. I'm a firm believer in training your strengths
Hmm.
as much as your weaknesses. So, people will tell me, "Oh, you have big arms," and I'll say, "Okay, that's good." It doesn't mean I'm going to stop training my arms because they happen to be big.
Yeah,
It's like if someone says, "Oh, well, you're a very good technical wrestler." It doesn't mean that I'm only going to focus on other aspects because I have a few people telling me that this is good. I train my strengths just as hard as I train my weaknesses so that everything gets better. And that's my mentality, is I want to be good at everything. I don't want to just pick a lane, stay in it, and that's it. One of the things I'm most proud of is you watch a Jeremy Prophet match, you very rarely will see the same match twice. I have
Mhm.
a vast arsenal of things I bring to the table. I have, I think, a very high fight IQ and in-ring IQ. And so I pride myself on the fact that you're not just seeing the same moves done in a different order. You're seeing a wide variety of different things, so you never know what to expect when I'm in there because I'm just that eclectic and that creative. As for the promo part of it, it's the same thing. I do work on it. It's not entirely natural, but it's something that I always work on improving. That I can watch the great promo people and dissect what makes their cadence so
Mhm.
catchy, what makes their mannerisms add to the words that they're saying, and then the words themselves. Like I always say, it's one thing to have the lyrics, but you got to also have the delivery.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to it, my biggest inspirations, as much as I love, the Chris Jerichos, the Rocks, the guys who could handle a microphone, my biggest inspirations come from people in hip hop, like Ice Cube, like
Mhm.
50 Cent, like Jay-Z, like guys who can really say something about someone, like they used to say about Ice Cube. He could say something about someone, and people would never look at that person the same way.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm called the harbinger of truth is because I speak the uncomfortable truth. I didn't give myself that name. That was kind of given to me somewhere along the lines. But it's because I speak the uncomfortable truth, and people know that when I talk, it's authentic, it's real. I'm not going to come out here and say stuff where people are going to question and say, no, that doesn't seem legit. He doesn't seem like it seems like he's just making that up. No, I speak the truth, even if it puts me in a bad light. I'm not here to make popular quotes and popular decisions. I'm here to make the right decisions, and I'm here to say things that need to be said. Bottom line. That's why I'm talking about all the issues we're facing us here in Canada, because no one else is willing to talk about it. People are scared, and so I'm not scared. That's one thing. Is I guess I was just born without whatever it is in your brain that causes you to be afraid or to be shy, and maybe that's what contributes to my promos and the authentic nature of what I try to convey. But when it comes down to it, I mean, I live for this, and I practice this pretty much every day, just like everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. You should, as you said, you should train your strength as much as your weaknesses. And growing up, I've always seen Canada like a sanctuary of wrestling, if you know what I mean, because uh, we have like a really few wrestlers on our television, but I was a huge fan of Chris Benoit, for example, and of course through him I discovered all of the history of the Hart family, the Hart Dungeon, and all this kind of Stampede Wrestling, all this kind of stuff. Uh, there, for what I can recall, there was a time like probably between the early '90s up until mid '90s where the Canadian independence scene wasn't as thriving as it used to be before or since, because from what you told me before, it looks like that now there are so many promotions that are trying their best and so many wrestlers just like you. Do you have any recollection of that era of Canadian wrestler when I assume you were a kid as well?
Well, yeah, I mean, the first wrestling match I ever saw was Bret the Hitman Hart against Blake Beverly. Didn't know Bret was Canadian, but it was very inspiring to see that a
Mm-hmm.
Canadian could rise to the top of the industry. It showed me that if he could do it, then I could do it, which is, the same kind of advice Chris Jericho gave to me years ago. My first ever interview I ever did in wrestling was Chris Jericho, right when he had gone on his hiatus from WWE around
Okay.
2005. And so it was the same advice. He said, look, it's going to be hard. It's going to be the hardest thing you ever do in your life, but you can make it. Look at me. I made it. You can make it too. So I did draw a lot of inspiration from Canadian wrestlers who followed a similar path. I ended up at Jacques Rougeau's wrestling school, Jacques
Mm-hmm.
also being from Canada and being able to achieve success on a world stage. I didn't get into wrestling wanting to just exist, wanting to just
Mm-hmm.
do matches. I wanted to reach the highest level and still want to reach the highest level in wrestling, and I believe my skill set and experience justifies it. Um, so yeah, I mean, at that time, yeah, I drew a lot of inspiration from Canadians because it told me that people who've gone down similar paths to me can actually make it. It's one of the reasons why, as of late, I'm very outspoken about the fact that I feel there's a lack of representation for people of color in Canadian wrestling. that, you watch Canadian wrestling now, you don't see too many people of color. You don't see that many Asian people, black people, native people,
Yeah.
uh, and so on. And so that's something I've been a big proponent of as well. If you think about it, I mean, feel free to do the research. I encourage all your listeners to do the same.
Yeah.
If you look up just, black Canadian wrestlers and who are the greatest black Canadian wrestlers of all time, there's Rocky Johnson, and then I don't know who's next. Jeremy Prophet, Drew
Yeah.
Onyx. It doesn't make sense that
Yeah. No one comes to mind. Yeah.
yeah, for everything that we've brought to the table as a country, the fact that people of color have been omitted from the history is unheard of.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that someone can watch wrestling, Canadian, a young Canadian person of color can watch wrestling and not see themselves represented on a world stage and barely represented on an independent stage. Um, it's something that I think needs to change, but all of us Canadians have one thing in common, and that's that we're facing such huge obstacles to be able to make it. But I think that internally, the big challenge should be to better integrate more minorities into wrestling itself, so that young kids, like I was when I watched wrestling, can
Mm-hmm.
see somebody that looks like them going in there, winning championships, being on top of promotions. I want to be able to do these kinds of things. I never wanted to be an activist, but it's just when you have the time to sit back and think about it, and maybe it's because I've been going 15 years, never having taken a break, never getting injured, that now I finally had the time to sit back and reflect and think about these things when I do my daily studies for wrestling, and to just want to be able to use every platform I have, my weekly show, every interview that I do, to be able to let the world know, hey, there's a lot of issues that need to change around here.
Oh yeah, as you said, you never wanted to be an activist, but at some point in life, that's a call that you receive, and you decided to answer that call in many ways than other, and that could be something that could propel you to the next step of your career, maybe even because,
Well,
uh,
one of the
yeah,
things I'm hopeful of is that it will propel me, but understand that this is not just about me. I
yeah,
would love to be successful, but I would love to also see things change in the overall culture, both internally here in the country and on a world stage. Because you have a lot of people who've achieved success, but it comes down to it, what have they done for the people back here? It's
hmm
like, yeah, they get there, but what are they doing to put eyes on the people who are still here? They've forgotten about Canada. It's why I use the hashtag Remember Canada. All these guys on TV who are not helping to open the door for the next generation. It's like I said, it's no different than when there were other colored players who got into Major League Baseball from the Negro Leagues before Jackie Robinson, and it didn't throw open the floodgates. It took Jackie Robinson to be able to make that happen. And that's why I want to be that guy. And I know that someone is going to hear the call. It doesn't matter how many subscribers you have, how many listeners you have. Hey, I'm a guy with, barely 300 followers on Twitter and maybe just under 5,000 people on Facebook, but I have a lot of fight in me. I'm not justified by a check mark on Twitter and the amount of
no,
influenceable people that I have there. I'm not justified by being an influencer because of those statistics. I'm justified by all of that because of what I have in here. And
yeah.
that's the fact that I have the guts and the heart to talk about these things, to deal with the haters, and to not be deterred. I'm not going to, follow the same playbook that got us in this mess. I'm going to do things differently, and I can't be bought, and I'm not going to be silenced.
And I subscribe to every word you just said. That's that's the right attitude, because someone's got to do it, and if with your body of work you can inspire other people to follow the same footsteps, there will be many more Jeremy Prophets coming, and probably you will help a lot your own wrestling scene in Canada. That's really admirable of you. Congrats, sir.
Well, thank you.
Congratulations.
I appreciate that, Francesco.
Yeah, and just a very random question. You said you came to Italy but never wrestled in Italy. Do you know anything about Italian wrestling? Have you ever seen any matches on YouTube or whatever? Or maybe is there like a specific promotion that you want to come and wrestle for?
I love when I get asked questions that no one has ever asked me in an interview. So every time that happens, I like to point it out. So I appreciate that question quite a bit.
Yeah,
I
welcome.
went to it. I went to Italy back when I was in high school, in my graduating year of high school. Had the privilege of being in Florence and in
Hmm.
Rome. Got to see the Vatican. Got
Yeah,
to see the Roman Colosseum, the Leaning Tower of Pisa. All the usual
yeah.
touristic sites. I really enjoyed the culture there, loved the food, and believe it or not, I have actually seen some wrestling from Italy, but it
Yeah,
dates back to, I would say, maybe around 2006 or so. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Rikishi had put on some events there. I forget the
could
name of the
be.
promotion. Do you remember?
No, but it could very well be.
It,
Uh,
it was a promotion that was run by Rikishi, if I'm not mistaken. I remember because a lot of people told me that like they had seen this on the Fight Network, and there was a wrestler by the name of the Black Pearl that they said kind of reminded them of me. So I decided to check it out. It was a card mostly made up of I think ex WWE wrestlers with some other wrestlers integrated into there. So that's the extent of what I've seen from Italy. But no, I would love to go there. I would love to go to all of Europe. My dream is to just be able to wrestle. Obviously people grow up watching WWE and they want to be WWE champion and whatnot. I really just want to, make a living doing wrestling. I want to fight the best in the world and show people where my rightful place is. So if that means going to Italy, if that means going to Istanbul, if that means going to Portugal or going to Pakistan, it's all the same to me. I want to be world traveled and I want to be able to show people what Jeremy Prophet is all about and hopefully inspire them to see the sport of professional wrestling and see something that they themselves can believe in and maybe want to do the same way as me.
Oh, well, I'm afraid I cannot help you with the Rikishi question because I'm not the biggest historian when it comes to Italian wrestling. But I can tell you that at the moment there are a couple of promotions that come to mind that are doing it with what they call a more indie style, like which means more similar to what we see in the UK and in Germany, for example. So one which is Rising Sun. I always try to mention them because they're so great people, and I had the owner Fabio here on the podcast as well. Ciao, Fabio, and they are doing a fantastic job, and it would be great to have Jeremy Prophet on the Rising Sun show one day. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah,
Let's.
I'm very much open to it. And Fabio, if you're listening, I tell you what, I'll cut you a hell of a deal if you want to bring me in. Let's talk. Let's do business.
Hope
Capiche?
so. Hope so. Yeah, capiche. That is great, man. Uh, I know you are also working with PCO as a main villain on his web series, and I'm sure you get asked this question lots of time. But since PCO is one of the few Canadians that you mentioned that was able to break through the United States, uh, is there like any advice that he gave you? Any I don't know, everything that could help you to knock this door off?
Oh, of course. I speak with him on a regular basis. We work together. We work together in the ring as well,
Hmm.
and we work together on the web series.
Yeah.
And he's been a great mentor to me. I bring a lot of my questions to him. He gives me the inside perspective as someone who has,
Hmm.
like you mentioned, been able to break that boundary. PCO is a bit of a different case though, because even though he's the only Canadian in Ring of Honor right now, unless you want to count Angelina Love, but
Hmm.
she's pretty much Americanized by this point.
I think
He
Danhausen
still,
is also like by marriage is also legally Canadian or something
yeah,
like
he
that.
he became a Canadian recently. I had a chance to train with him a couple of times, and we actually had a match too. I beat him like he stole something from me. I beat his ass big time. And but all that, I mean, there's tons of guys in Ring of Honor that I've had
Yeah,
the
yeah.
chance to be in the ring with, like Danhausen, like Jay Lethal, Matt Taven, Vincent, Dalton Castle. I can go on and on. Fantastic matches with all of them. Really makes me wish I could be in there fighting them on a weekly basis,
Yeah.
promos on them and tearing them to shreds. But yeah, Danhausen's case is, I think he became a Canadian citizen recently because of his marriage, but he was born in Michigan, if I'm not mistaken, so he'd be an exception. PCO is a Quebecer through and through, no pun intended, and he had previously worked with the WWE, so he had already gotten his work visa and all those things then. His body of work would definitely justify him as an exceptional athlete and whatnot. But yeah, I do speak with him quite a bit about this kind of thing. I speak with everyone that I've crossed paths with. I try to explain to them the situation, and it never ceases to surprise me. I'll even use PCO as an example. Like, I brought this to his attention, that he's the only Canadian in Ring of Honor, and that it's hard for Canadians to get hired there. But literally, every person in a position of power that I speak to, this is the first issue on the agenda. This is, when Jeremy Prophet wakes up in the morning, my first thought is, what am I going to do today to solve this lack of scouting, this border issue? That's what I think of every day. That's the first thought on my mind in the morning. The last thought on my mind when I go to sleep at night is, what am I going to do to fix this? Who else do I need to speak to? And that's really all it is. It's just putting in work. Other people talk about how they've tried to tackle this issue, they've tried and failed. I just think maybe I'm just a little bit more persistent, because I'm like a pit bull. If I bite you, I'm not letting go. It's either I die or your limb is coming with me. So that's pretty much what it comes down to with me. Is every day is a fight towards this, and I'm gonna make people realize. People say, "Oh, you can't go on a podcast and talk about this thing. It's not going to do anything." Not true. That's maybe because of your minimal efforts. But when it comes down to it, the more people that know, that's already the first step to causing the domino effect that's going to lead to the right people knowing and saying, this has gone on for too long and it needs to change. So I believe in fighting for this every day. I have enough energy to do it. By the grace of God, my mental faculties are all still intact due to the fact that, I stay healthy. I keep my brain healthy. Don't do drugs, don't drink, don't smoke, never had a concussion. So, and I'm educated. So maybe I just have a little bit more brain power, but I know that I have a lot more work ethic. And that's why I'm going to keep talking about this. And that's why I know something is going to give, because eventually, even if it's because people are fed up with me, someone's going to listen and someone's going to do something about it.
Man, I really hope that something will happen out of that. I mean, I'm a combative person, so I like when I hear someone like-minded and say this kind of stuff. So
I personally think, Francesco, everyone here in Canada could do their part. Instead of going on a podcast and talking about how great you are and talking about all the things you've accomplished in your career, talk about what more you want to achieve. Talk about how we can change this for Canadians. Use the platform. Like I said, I don't need to have thousands and thousands of followers online to actually go out and put in the work and want to make a difference. It's the same way that I don't think I'm anything less of a professional than people who are on TV. I live a professional wrestler's lifestyle. I live as though I am on TV. I live as though right now I'm in front of millions or billions of people doing this. I bring that same work ethic, that same energy to the table. Other people out there can do the exact same thing. And the more of us that put our energy to it, the more of us that tell our followers, hey, click on that retweet button, hit the subscribe, click on the like, the more people that can get that simple message out there, eventually somebody is going to hear it. And I welcome anyone within the sound of my voice. If you're in a position of power in a company, if you're a scout, if you're whatever you may be, and you think I'm wrong, then come on and debate me. I'll be happy to debate anyone, any place, anytime. Believe me, I will put aside any time, anything else that I have to actually speak to someone who would want to refute any of my claims. But I just hope that you've done the same amount of research, put in the same amount of work, and can bring the same energy and enthusiasm to that debate. But I ain't scared of nobody. You want to debate this issue and say I'm wrong? By all means, bring it on. I will be happy to speak with you. I'll keep it professional. And maybe by the end of it, maybe you'll convince me. I highly doubt it, but I'm pretty sure I'll enlighten you to a few things.
Man, we cannot agree more. I can literally hear you talking for hours. I love it. I absolutely love it.
You're too kind, my friend.
But before I let you go and live your life, I want to ask you a little quick question because we briefly touched upon it before. But I want you to tell me something about your experience in podcasting that you mentioned. You're a part of the JOFO Wrestling Podcast, which is a podcast that I highly recommend. And if you want to say a couple of words about it.
Ah, yes, JOFO has been what I've put a lot of my time into during this pandemic. Like I said, as a wrestler, I love keeping a full schedule. If I could wrestle every day, I would I would do that. Unfortunately, we've been under lockdown here since March. I've only
Hmm.
had 3 matches since since March, since over a year now. For someone who has wrestled almost every weekend, I mean, I've never had more than 3 weekends off consecutively
Yeah.
since 2005, and that's only when Christmas and New Year's kind of fall close to each other on weekends and no one's putting on shows around here. So I put a lot of my time and effort into JOFO to be able to use that as a platform to show a different side of me, to go on and entertain people, to also at the same time give them some insights into what goes on in professional wrestling, some of the issues like we've talked about here, but with a
Hmm.
more entertaining twist. You know, it's funny, it's action packed. We have a lot of entertainment value to the show, but also a lot of knowledge at the same time. And one thing I believe in is providing people with the truth, even if it is just our opinion, which just our effing opinion is what
Oh,
JOFO
you can
stands for.
swear. You can swear. We're not Dan
No,
Houser.
no, I don't need to swear. Swearing is much like you'll see. I don't swear in promos because swearing is an easy way out. I can say some hurtful, painful, vicious things without ever having to swear, and I pride myself on that. I'm the most vicious person in a promo that you'll ever hear without ever having to use any kind of an F word or anything like that. You can look online. You'll never find a promo of me saying anything like that, and I like that. That's my brand because that's just cheap heat if you ask me. But anyways, JOFO, they came up with the name before me. Just our effing opinion. But
Which is
when
a
Jeremy
genius
Prophet,
name for a podcast. I love it. I absolutely love it.
but when I'm on there, I also pride myself on delivering the truth, to bring an actual journalistic ethic to the show.
Yeah.
My education is in journalism. I
Oh,
took it in
there's two of
college.
us then.
Yeah, so that's something that I bring to the table, and I believe that we're not going to report on hearsay, rumors, these kinds of things. And I also pride myself on bringing the hard-hitting questions because, like I said, I ain't scared of nobody. So when it comes down to it, if there's stuff that people want to know, I'm going to be the one to ask that person, even if it'll put heat on me. Because hey, look, I've had heat my whole career. There's people who don't like me. That's fine. If you don't like me, you'll never forget me. So when it comes down to it, that's what I feel we bring to the table on JOFO. No easy peasy interviews. We make sure we get to the truth and we give people their opportunity to be able to set the record straight. And so no matter if we're interviewing an up and coming talent like a PJ Savage, or if we're interviewing someone like Devon Dudley, we make sure they get to speak their piece, they get to answer the hard hitting questions, and we make sure that it's an entertaining time for all our fans because let's face it, as much as it's wrestling, we know the name of the game is entertainment. So you will not be bored if Jeremy Prophet is on your screen.
Yeah, I can second that. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on the show. I want you to plug all of your channels. Where can we find you? And
Well,
where can we see you? Not only online. Is there like a specific place where it's better to go to find a Jeremy Prophet match?
like I always say, YouTube is a great resource. There are no borders on the internet.
Mhm.
So you want to punch in Jeremy Prophet, put in the year that you want. You'll find stuff from 2005 right through to 2020. And like I said, you'll never see the same match twice. So that's something that I pride myself on. You can go on YouTube, see my matches. We have a nice little playlist on the JOFO YouTube also. So if you want to go to the JOFO YouTube, subscribe to them because I don't have a page with my matches that you can subscribe to, but
Mhm.
subscribe to the JOFO in the Ring group. You'll get updates there. You'll get access to my favorite matches, which are on there. And you can also see us every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. You'll want to be on when the episode's premiering because the chats are just as much fun as what you're seeing in the episode because we're usually on there taking your questions, answering, interacting, telling you all kinds of funny stories about what went on behind the scenes, maybe before or after we did this interview, etc., etc. You can also find me on pretty much all social media platforms. Find me on Twitter. Really trying to get those Twitter followers up because I am plugged into Twitter. I'm plugged into Twitter like some people are plugged into life support or into an intravenous. I'm on Twitter all the time. So if you want to reach me, follow me on Twitter. You'll see what I'm saying on there. Shoot me a message. You'll probably get one back within 5 minutes or less. So you can find me on Twitter at Jeremy Prophet. That's JEREMYPROPHET. You can find me on Instagram at The Real Jeremy Prophet, spelt the same way. And like I said, you can see me on JOFO, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't know what time that is over in Europe, but I would assume it's probably in the wee hours of the night.
Yeah, probably. So, it's like 1 a.m. Probably.
Yeah, I know that I'm a big fan
here
of
in
the
Italy,
UFC,
at least.
And I know that there's a lot of issues with the European fans over there watching the UFCs that take place in Vegas because they usually start, the main cards, pay-per-view start around 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And some people are like, having their breakfast around that time too. So I know that the time may not be I know the time may not be convenient for most people, your side of the pond, as we like to say. But when it comes down to it, all the episodes are on there, so you don't have to watch it live. You can go back and rewatch it, and you can follow me on Twitter. I try to sleep as little as possible. So, like I said, no matter where you are in the world, shoot me a message, give me a follow. And if you want to have a conversation about wrestling, you want to know more about the issues in Canada, you want to know more about my career, you got another podcast, you want me to be a guest, I'll be happy to be on. We'll never charge you anything because getting my message out there is way more important than putting money in my pockets. It's why I don't have a, what do they call it, pro wrestling tees or anything like that. Believe me, folks, I've made my money in this world. I've made a lot of good investments. The last thing I need is for fans to throw money my way. Keep your hard-earned money. Put it towards your family and loved ones. Your support means more than any dollar amount ever could.
And on the contrary of what my guest just said, I don't have any money. So if you want to support the Last Minute Wrestling Podcast, you just go to patreon.com/LMW podcast or teespring.com/LMW podcast and buy a wonderful, wonderful t-shirt.
So I'll do you one better. If you guys want anything of mine, go buy Francesco's instead. Say I would have bought something of Jeremy Prophet's, but I'd put that money towards you. Put it towards a good cause. But like I said, I don't need your money. I just need your support.
Yeah, Jeremy, that's been a lovely chat. I'm sure we're gonna have one more down the line. Who knows? I would love to talk back with you. And have a nice day. You have so many things to do today. A big day for the podcast as well. So, man, wish you all the best.
It has been an honor. It has been a privilege. And I cannot thank you and your viewers enough for allowing me to come into your homes here, preach my message, and have a great time. So anytime you want to do this again, and remember, I'm the harbinger of truth, so I don't tell lies.
Yes.
Anytime you want to do this again, you just let me know, and I'll be there for you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, man. Ciao.